So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Welcome to this edition of Soccer Hub Talks. In this specific case, we'll be discussing and chatting with our partner in Southeast Asia. It's HARCUS Consultancy Group. So I'm here with the CEO of HARCUS Consultancy Group and also operations managers at IPSO for Southeast Asia. Is a man with a lot of experience in this specific market, but also in the US. In Southeast Asia, he was the regional head football scout at Global Premier Soccer. He was also the director and head of football at Fox Football Vietnam. He was international head coach in Juventus Football Club in Singapore, and also the projects manager and head of international coach at Arsenal Soccer Schools. Yes, as I said, a lot of experience also in the US market. Currently, he is the CEO of HARCUS Consultancy Group in Vietnam, a Vietnam-based company, which goal is to identify and advise commercial, community, and operational opportunities for football clubs across this specific region. We'll be having some more details about the job of this company a bit further ahead. As I said, HARCUS Consultancy Group is Soccer Hub's partner for Southeast Asia. We just made a partnership that allows to take Soccer Hub courses to that part of the world. So it's a big pleasure to have Richard HARCUS with us today. I'm going to introduce him in the conversation. So here it is. Hello, Richard. Good afternoon over there.
Hi, Ricardo. Good afternoon, good evening from Vietnam. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. My first question is about HARCUS and your company over there. Could you please tell me a bit more about yourself first, and also about HARCUS Consultancy Group, Richard?
Okay, so as you can probably tell by the accent, I'm from Scotland. So I originally was a coach in Scotland, and I had the opportunity to coach abroad in Singapore. Since then, I've coached in Singapore and Thailand and Vietnam. I've had the opportunity to go to Cambodia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and generally travel a lot of Southeast Asia working with football clubs. I moved from being a regular coach to moving into more of a commercial role and more of a senior role within football academies. As you said, I worked as international coach with Juventus in Singapore and Arsenal Soccer Schools here in Vietnam. I made a move to America, where I gained a lot more experience with Global Premier Soccer. That really helped develop my commercial background as well, and my understanding of the running of a football club from a commercial point of view and a commercially operational point of view. And from there, I moved back to Vietnam to work with Fox Football Vietnam, who are the biggest youth elite academy for young people in the south of Vietnam. So from there, I was their head of football. Then I was their head of football operations. I still have a good relationship working with Fox Football. I also work with many of the other clubs, the professional clubs across Southeast Asia. I kind of got to a stage where I wanted to start my own business and use all of these contacts together. So now I have the pleasure of working with some of Southeast Asia's biggest clubs, some of the most progressive clubs in Southeast Asia. But I also work with some of the biggest clubs that people back home in Europe would know as well. The remit of HARCUS Consultancy Group really is to assist in the development of football in Southeast Asia. We use the hashtag Asia Rising because it's very much something that we see happening. The population is growing, the economy is growing. I would say the love of football is growing, but it's impossible for it to grow any more than it already is, because from baby to old woman to old man, everyone loves football here in Southeast Asia. It's a massive market, and it's a largely untapped market, both commercially and from the talent from footballers on the pitch. So you look at the size of many large businesses here in Southeast Asia, can dwarf many companies in Europe. But what I would like to see is I would like to now start bringing through the talented players that we have in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in Vietnam, back to back to Europe, or to give them an opportunity. You know, you have players like Van Dijk, who plays in Heerenveen in the Eredivisie, and there's certainly more players as well that could come over from Southeast Asia. And I think if you're to look at Korean players just slightly outside of Southeast Asia, and you look at what Song has done at Tottenham, there are many, many players here in Southeast Asia. You know, the former Cardiff goalkeeper as well, being from the Philippines. There's a hotbed of talent here that has yet to be discovered by Europe. So yeah, it's a hugely exciting time for HARCUS Consultancy Group, and a massively exciting time for football in Southeast Asia.
Okay, so you talked about the opportunities that you can find in that part of the world in football. But Richard, what are the main challenges that football is facing in that part of the world? We talked about the lack of high-level competition to develop talent. What is your opinion about it?
Speaking kind of as a coach, I would agree with you 100%. In my heart, I'm still very much a coach. It's very difficult to watch a game without watching it from a coach's point of view, rather than someone who sits in the stands and is too busy looking at the advertising boards going round the side of the pitch. So I still think of football very much as a coach. And I would say the challenges are, like you said, a lack of, from some of the countries, a lack of good competition around them to better themselves. However, that competition is getting better. I think with the likes of, as I said, Van Dijk leaving Vietnam to go to Holland, from Hanoi to Holland to better himself, this is making him a better player. The other problems that you have here, it's not a one size fits all solution, because Singapore has fantastic infrastructure, but it doesn't seem to have the desire, whereas Vietnam doesn't have the infrastructure, but it has more than enough desire. Thailand has a fantastic league, a brilliant manager in Honda, and they have a growing interest in their league, but for some reason it's not all coming together for them. And then, of course, you have countries like Brunei, who are a wealthy country, but their national team is very low, and their club football is amateur, where one of their teams plays in the Singaporean league. And then you have really just, if you look at Indonesia, for example, the sheer size of the country makes it difficult. If you look at the Philippines, because there's so many islands, it's difficult for fans to travel. It's difficult to get a togetherness. So there is not one answer for the whole of Southeast Asia. You would really need to look at individual cases in individual countries. It would be like me trying to say, what is the problem with European football when Iceland has done so well? So why is San Marino not performing? You know, it's a difficult one to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard, for your answer. Now, talking about coaches, you just said that you have a special interest. You still feel like a coach. What's the level of coaching over there, and what is being done to improve the current status of that coach? Is there the different? Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, okay. The coaching here, again, it can vary from country to country. From the grassroots level, you have many coaches that are working without qualifications. You have other, and the worrying thing from this is that you have many grassroots coaches who do not have first aid qualification, do not follow basic health and safety guidelines. Whereas you have other countries in Southeast Asia that are very, very strict with educational backgrounds, but not on sporting backgrounds. You have larger clubs who are now rushing around to find coaches because the AFC have said that in order to get into the Champions League, you need to have an academy. But if you have to have an academy, then you need to have the staff to fill the academy. So in some cases, you do not have highly qualified enough coaches that are in those academies. Now, there are many foreign coaches that they would say here. So European coaches, South American coaches, that work here in Southeast Asia. However, the problem with them is they do not speak the local language. For me, Ding Viet Chum Chup Chup. So I speak a little bit of Vietnamese, and most of my Vietnamese is based around shouting at a referee. So my Vietnamese is okay from a football point of view. I try to learn more Vietnamese every day, and I think that's one of the biggest tests that a coach will have here, is to learn the culture, learn the language. Do not try to change everything too quickly, but there are definite opportunities for coaches here. But there are more challenges than there are. How would I say? I wouldn't say there's more challenges than there are benefits, but certainly the longer that you are here, the less challenges that become. It's not easy to come here. Many coaches come here and then leave very quickly because they're not able to adapt. I think you can tell the level of a good coach if they're able to come to the Philippines, if they're able to come to Vietnam, Malaysia. Malaysia, obviously easier because most people speak English. But if you go to Cambodia and you're in Vietnam, in the provinces, no one speaks English. So you need to learn to speak Vietnamese. And some people just aren't prepared to do that. I think the mark of a good coach is a coach that is always on a course, always trying to develop himself, always trying to get better, always trying to educate. And if that's not educating other people, you need to show that you're trying to educate yourself in order to influence others to educate themselves. And if you can't do that, then maybe Asia is not the place for you. But these are certainly some of the challenges.
Yeah, it's very very common, even in different level of coaches that I've been talking with. They focus a lot on the question of the education. Okay, and I believe that you have right now you have no excuse for not having education with so many online opportunities to learn a lot about this kind of job. Still insisting a bit, one of the purpose of Soccer Hub, of course, is to deliver education to coaches, to different football experts, and also to make this connection to the job market. So you touch a bit in that subject in your last answer, but do you believe that Southeast Asia it's an emerging market to the foreign football coaches? Should they look for opportunities over there?
I think that if you want to better yourself as a coach, you have to test yourself. You need to find your limit and then push yourself past your limit. Peter Reid was the manager here for Thailand at the beginning of the 2000s, I think. 2007, 2008, something like that. And he himself, a well-traveled footballer and a well-traveled manager, he said that he was learning football all over again almost when he came to Southeast Asia. He was learning new things every day. He loved the football here because he felt it was very much getting back to the original essence of football. And so there are opportunities here. There has been many good managers. Sven-Goran Eriksson was the manager for the Philippines until recently. As I touched on, you had Honda, who is the manager still at Cambodia. Steve Darby, Peter Wide. There's a whole host of managers that have been here and that have been successful here. And I think that even if you look at Constantine and at India, many of these managers are not given the credit that they deserve for how well that they've done out here in Southeast Asia, because we don't make any buts about it. We don't try to hide from the fact that everyone here in Southeast Asia watches the Bundesliga, watches the Premiership, watches La Liga, and so on. But nobody is watching the S League or the V League from Europe, and if they are, it's a very, 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 very small amount. And so maybe they do not get the recognition that they do. But to come back and answer your initial point, I definitely think that if you were a coach, you need to push yourself, and in order to do that, I often say to people, one of the hardest things for me coaching here in Southeast Asia, you speak to a Japanese person, you bring a Japanese person off the bench, and you have a Malaysian person on the pitch, and you're trying to relay a message to maybe a Dutch defender, and you speak to the Dutch defender who his inside right might be French, and all the time you're speaking to the referee to make sure that the substitution happens, and you have to do that in Vietnamese to the referee and the linesman. Now, this is just communication. This isn't even thinking about the game itself. And so if you want to develop yourself and being able to think very quickly and on various different levels while you're still watching the game going on, taking yourself out of your comfort zone and coming to Southeast Asia or any country that is away from your own mother tongue can only be a good thing for your own development.
Okay, Richard, in your opinion, and you've been there for so many years, what's going to be the future of football over there? Do you think that is going to grow enough to the national teams can be competing with some of the European? Do you believe that it is possible? Do you believe that we will find in the biggest European clubs some of the players that were taught over there? Do you believe that is possible in the next few years, Richard?
I think it depends if your opinion is asking my head or if my opinion is asking my heart. I think in the long term, Thailand will go to the World Cup. I think Vietnam will go to the World Cup. I think Malaysia will go to the World Cup. Those would be my top three. And just behind that, I would say Indonesia. I think if you look at the progress of South Korea and Japan and the impact that they've had on the World Cup, I think also if you look at FIFA, make no mistake, if FIFA change the rules to allow more Southeast Asian teams in, as they should do to allow more African teams in, then there will definitely be better football shown than people would expect from Southeast Asia. If you look at Vietnam, for example, obviously I'm slightly biased because on the outside I'm Scottish and on the inside I'm Vietnamese. But so obviously I'm very biased towards Vietnam, but Vietnam are the only Southeast Asian team in the FIFA Top 100. So if you look at the teams that are behind them and you look at the teams that are around them, and Vietnam are beating the teams that are ahead of them. And so if they continue to go the way that they're going, I think that they will shock a lot of people. Thailand are a very good team. With a very good Japanese manager, and the Malaysia, you can never discount Malaysia. They have a fantastic new FAM DNA structure to unite the entire country, and they have massive coaching programs. And you look at the size of their leagues in Malaysia, the Malaysian Super League, the fact what any of these countries miss in or lack in ability, they have in desire. And I think from a coach's point of view, I always prefer a player that has more desire. You know, if you say, do you want a player with lots of skill or do you want a player with lots of desire? I would take the desire over the skill, because desire and hard work will beat the skill every time for me, in my opinion.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much. Just to conclude, you just said that there are some opportunities in that specific market. The level of practice is very different from country to country over there. Also, there will be some opportunities of growth of the football over there that makes possible to more foreign coaches go over there to deliver also some of their knowledge. Also, there is still some fragilities in some countries in what it comes to education of the coaches. That's why we are here. So, Richard, I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you also for being available to partner up with Soccer Hub to deliver our courses over there. So once again, thank you very much, and I hope that I can see you soon again and have another lovely discussion like this one. Okay, Richard?
Thank you. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you, and thanks to your listeners.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.